Canada is the second largest country on Earth, covering nearly 3.8 million square miles and stretching across 6 different time zones. Its vast territory includes a wide range of climates, from the towering peaks of the Rocky Mountains and the flat open prairies, to the lush temperate rainforests of the Pacific Northwest and the frozen tundras of the Arctic Circle. But Canada's diversity isn't just found in its geography, it lives in its people as well. Over thousands of years, Canada has been shaped by individuals from every corner of the world, bringing their cultures, languages, and beliefs. While these differences sometimes cause conflict, they more often led to cooperation, understanding, and the creation of new communities that together built an entirely new nation. So how did Canada become what it is today? From the arrival of its earliest First Nations to becoming one of the most multicultural places on Earth, this is the story of Canada. Human history in Canada began the same way it did across the Americas, with people migrating across the Beringia land bridge that once connected Siberia to North America some 16,000 years ago. As sea levels rose after the last ice age, around 11,000 years ago, this land bridge disappeared forever, cutting off the continent from Asia. The retreat of the glacier opened the way southward, allowing these first peoples to spread and build societies across the land that would one day become Canada. Over generations, Indigenous peoples developed distinct cultures and languages unique to each region. In the east, Algonquian and Iroquoian speakers lived from Hudson Bay down to the Atlantic coast of the modern United States. Across the Central Plains lived the Cree-speaking peoples, who moved with the great herds of bison. In the west, Naden and Salish-speaking nations thrived, sustained by salmon and the mighty cedar trees that provided homes, canoes, and towering totem poles. Far to the north, the Inuit carved out a way of life across the Arctic archipelago, stretching from Alaska to Greenland. But unlike most of the Americas, where European discovery is dated to Columbus in 1492, Canada's first encounter with Europeans happened almost 500 years earlier. In the early 11th century, Norse Vikings, already settled in Iceland and Greenland, pushed further west. Leif Erikson became the first European known to set foot in North America, naming parts of it Helluland and Markland, believed to be Baffin Island and Labrador. He later established a settlement at what is now Elance Auxiliary Meadows in Newfoundland, calling the region Vinland. From here, Norse explorers launched further voyages, where they first encountered indigenous peoples they called Skraelings. Yet the Viking presence in North America was short-lived. By the 12th century, their settlements were abandoned, their knowledge of these lands slowly fading from European memory, until nearly 500 years later. In 1497, just 5 years after Columbus reached the Caribbean, the Italian navigator John Cabot, sailing for England, sighted North America again. Over the next decades, English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese explorers ventured to these shores, but true colonization began in 1534 when French explorer Jacques Cartier sailed into the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Claiming the land for France, Cartier gave it the name Canada, drawn from the indigenous word for settlement. Though his early colonies failed, he had opened the door for France's ambitions in the New World. By the early 1600s, Samuel de Champlain arrived to chart the land in detail. He founded Port Royal in Nova Scotia in 1605, then Quebec in 1608, laying the foundation for New France. He forged alliances with First Nations and became the first European to see the Great Lakes. Slowly, settlers trickled in, and by the mid-17th century, New France had just over 3,000 inhabitants. Meanwhile, England was also staking claims. First with St. John's, Newfoundland in 1583, and later in 1670 with the Hudson's Bay Company, which established vast fur trading networks. By the early 1700s, North America was divided into 2 spheres: the French, stretching from Quebec and the Great Lakes down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico, and the British, dominating the Hudson Bay and the Atlantic seaboard. Tensions soon boiled over into war. The decisive moment came in the French and Indian War, part of the wider 7 Years' War between France and Britain. After years of battles, Quebec fell to the British in 1759, followed by the rest of New France. In 1763, France surrendered its mainland territories in North America, and Canada passed under British rule. To stabilize relations, Britain allowed French-speaking Canadians to keep their language, religion, and laws, a legacy that survives today. But just to the south, Britain faced another crisis. Its 13 American colonies rebelled, sparking the Revolutionary War. While some in Canada sympathized with the revolutionaries, most remained loyal to Britain. The American invasion of Quebec in 1775 failed, and Canada became a safe base for British forces. When the war ended in 1783, the United States was born, and new borders were drawn. Thousands of Loyalists fled north, helping to shape new Canadian colonies, including New Brunswick and Upper Canada. On the Pacific coast, Britain extended its reach after Captain James Cook's 1778 expedition, which opened trade across the Pacific with China. Disputes with Spain were resolved, and explorers like George Vancouver and Alexander Mackenzie pushed further inland, linking the west coast to the rest of the continent. Yet Britain and the US would remain rivals over this region for decades. The early 1800s brought more conflict. In 1812, angered by British trade restrictions and naval practices, the United States invaded Canada. The war raged for 3 years, but ended without shifting borders. The result was a peaceful arrangement. The US-Canada border became the longest undefended border in the world. Still, unrest grew within Canada. Inspired partly by American Republican ideals, Canadians frustrated with colonial rule launched rebellions in 1837 to 1838. Though suppressed, these uprisings pushed Britain to reform governance. In 1840, Upper and Lower Canada were united as the Province of Canada, setting the stage for greater self-rule. By mid-century, Canada was expanding toward its modern shape. The Oregon Treaty of 1846 settled its Pacific Northwest border, and in 1867, the Dominion of Canada was officially formed, uniting several colonies under one government with Ottawa as its capital. Over time, more provinces and territories joined, but unity wasn't always smooth. The Meadows of the Prairies, led by Louis Riel, resisted Canadian expansion in the Red River and Northwest rebellions. Though defeated, their struggle shaped Canada's future. The completion of the Canadian Pacific Railway in 1885 physically united the nation, but also brought difficult policies for Indigenous peoples, including forced relocations and the residential school system aimed at erasing their cultures. At the same time, the Klondike Gold Rush drew thousands north, helping finalize Canada's boundary with Alaska. By the 20th century, Canada had grown into a prosperous, self-governing nation, though still part of the British Empire. In World War I, Canada supplied resources and sent troops who fought in battles like Vimy Ridge, forging a strong national identity, though conscription caused deep rifts, especially in French Canada. The Great Depression of the 1930s hit Canada hard, but it also brought social reforms and political milestones, like women's suffrage. Canada's independence deepened with the Statute of Westminster in 1931, though ties to Britain remained. When World War II broke out, Canada again joined Britain, contributing soldiers, supplies, and even serving as a safe haven for Britain's gold reserves and, potentially, its royal family. After the war, Canada embraced progress, universal healthcare, pensions, and the addition of Newfoundland as its 10th province in 1949. The Cold War brought Canada closer to the US through NATO and NORAD. At home, the rise of Quebec separatism tested unity, but referendums kept the country together. In 1965, the maple leaf flag was adopted, and in 1982, the Constitution Act finally gave Canada full independence, though it kept the monarchy as a ceremonial institution. Today, Canada stands as one of the most diverse and democratic nations on Earth. Its story is one of resilience, compromise, and unity, built by generations of people from across the globe who made this land their home. Thanks again to SLY for sponsoring this video. With Sly's ESIM, you can stay connected while traveling without expensive roaming fees. Simply download the app, choose a plan from over 190 countries, and get 15% off with the code ***. This is history *** at checkout.